Today, we're going to dig into exactly which cardio equipment is the best to invest in when it comes to your home fitness setup. Is it a treadmill, a rower, a bike, elliptical, climber, boxing bag, or even a VR headset? We're going to be comparing them all to see what may be the best option for your home. Now, a big thank you goes out to Freebeat, who is today's sponsor. You can learn more about their best-selling lit bike in a bit. But without delay, let's get started finding out which equipment is the king of cardio. Now, when it comes to comparing equipment, I like to look at a variety of factors, including the typical price range, the required amount of floor space, the skill requirement of the machine, whether it's a full body workout or more of a localized one, if it's a higher or lower impact, if the equipment is better suited for short, high intensity workouts or longer aerobic sessions, and of course, the quality and functionality of the movement itself. So there's a lot to consider, and I believe figuring out which cardio equipment is best is really going to depend on which factors are most important for you personally. And as we go through these, let me know in the comments below what your favorite piece of cardio equipment is. Okay, so let's start with the largest, most popular piece of equipment out there, the treadmill. Now, I love a good treadmill, but it always does seem a little strange to me that it is the most popular home fitness cardio machine, considering that it's one of the most expensive options and takes up the most space, ranging in price from around $1,200 to $5,000, with the average price generally being around $2,500, and most are around 2.5 feet wide by 6 feet long, so taking up around 15 square feet. Now, in terms of a learning curve, treadmills are nice because they can be used by both beginners who may want to use them for walking or hiking at an incline, and can also be used by runners at pretty much any fitness level. Now, running on a treadmill is a fairly high impact movement, though it generally is less impact than it would be running outside on concrete. Now, running or walking is obviously a lower body focus activity, but is still great for both longer aerobic work and higher intensity training. And of course, running and walking are extremely functional movements that are really great for you to do daily long term and get you out of that sitting position, which most of us are in way too often. That said, it's such a functional movement that you don't really even need a treadmill at all, especially if you live somewhere that has decent weather year round. So overall, I believe treadmills are typically only the best option for those who already enjoy running or hiking, maybe live somewhere where they can't run outdoors all of the time, and have a good amount of space and a pretty high budget. Now, next, let's talk about the fastest growing cardio equipment category, the rower. Now, the rower is pretty unique in a lot of ways that we're going to discuss, but first, the average price for a good rower is generally around $1,500, with the range typically being between $800 and $3,000. Now, in terms of floor space, it's pretty unique because most rowers can be stored vertically. So while they can take up a lot of room while in use, as they generally need to be laid out at least 7 or 8 feet, but they take up a very small amount of room when stored upright, usually only requiring around 4 to 6 total square feet. Now, one obstacle for rowing is that there is a pretty high learning curve in order to use it correctly. And this is why in the past, most people who bought rowers were only those who had previously learned how to row from it being their sport or learning it from a coached fitness program. And while advances in connected fitness tech have made it a lot easier for people to learn how to row from their home, it is still going to take some time for most to be really able to get the most out of their rower. Now, rowing is very low impact, which is great, though it can cause some back issues if somebody is inflexible and does not know how to row correctly. Now, one of the highlights about rowing is that it does utilize your whole body, which also makes it one of the best pieces of equipment for shorter, more high-intense sessions. It still works for longer aerobic training, but generally, people find it less comfortable and fun for that purpose when compared to other equipment. The movement itself is great with both the hip and leg drive paired with the upper body pull to strengthen your upper back and arms, though the negative here is that it is more sitting, which, as I mentioned earlier, isn't always the best option if you're already sitting all day long. Overall, I think rowers are best for people who prefer shorter, higher intensity workout training sessions and want to be able to get in a great full body workout in a relatively small amount of time. Since it can be stored upright, it is also a great option if you don't have a lot of available floor space, for example, if you live in an apartment. Now, next up, of course, is the bike. Indoor bikes have become really popular, and for a very good reason, providing a great mix of benefits as we'll discuss. So first off, quality indoor bikes on average average cost around $1,500, though they can range from $1,000 to $2,500. And they usually are around 2.5 feet wide by 4 feet long, meaning that they take up a more moderate 10 square feet of space. And bikes have one of the smallest learning curves to learn, meaning that almost anyone can get started with good form pretty much from day one. It also provides some of the lowest impact of any cardio device. So as long as you set up your seat to the right height, it is very unlikely someone will ever really get injured from biking indoors. Now, biking obviously focuses on your legs over your upper body, but while it is not a whole body training session, it does allow the bike to be more comfortable, especially for longer periods of time. And while biking can still be used for shorter high intensity sessions, I think where it is really the most valuable is for longer aerobic work. And there's a reason why biking is so popular, and I believe that it is because it allows you to still use your hands to drink water and interact with the screen, and because it's comfortable and you're fairly stationary, making it easier to become immersed in a coach-led class. Now, the biking movement itself is also pretty good, though it is a bit less functional than some of the others. And again, if you sit all day, you're going to be sitting even more if you primarily bike. So overall, I think bikes are best for people who want to feel comfortable while training, like the ability to be able to take both shorter high intensity classes and longer aerobic sessions, and just be immersed or entertained by a coach in front of you in a class. And speaking of bikes, I want to briefly tell you about a new bike that I've been using lately, and the sponsor of today's video, the Lit Bike by Freebeat. Not only is the Freebeat Lit Bike one of the best looking bikes available, it also feels great to use. Not only is the magnetic resistance ultra quiet, but the resistance can also be adjusted automatically depending on the instructor's cues and your unique skill level and riding style. It even has a smart saddle detection system that can detect whether you're in or out of the seat. The classes are all gamified, allowing you to compete on a leaderboard against your friends or family in workouts that test your ability to hold the beat to some of your favorite songs, earning points for pedal accuracy and taking part in various challenges and events. The Lit Bike by Freebeat also has a great looking 22-inch HD rotating screen so that you can work out on or off of the bike with a huge library of HIIT classes, stretching routines, and more. And at just $1,299, the Lit Bike simply has way more advanced features like that auto resistance than any other bike at that price point. And for a limited amount of time, Freebeat is offering an additional $100 off just for viewers of Connect the Watts. So make sure to check out the discount code in the description below. Now, next up, we have ellipticals. And ellipticals tend to be priced similarly to bikes, being in that $1,000 to $2,500 price range, and require a pretty decent amount of room, usually being around 2.5 feet wide and 5 feet in the length. Additionally, because the legs tend to swing out back and forth, you may need additional room behind you. And ellipticals are interesting because it's as if you took the treadmill, but took away the high impact, took away the skill needed to learn to run, and added an upper body component to it. And usually when you make a movement more full body, you tend to slide the use case of that equipment to more of the shorter high intensity end versus long sessions. But the elliptical is unique in that it actually feels better suited for longer aerobic training. Now, in terms of the movement, it's definitely not the most functional by any means, which is sort of the main issue I personally have with suggesting it for everyone, but it does get you off of your butt, and for somebody who really needs that lower impact, I think it makes a lot of sense. So overall, I would suggest the elliptical for someone who may be a little bit older and needs that lower impact and would like a full body workout that can be used for all kinds of training sessions, but is best suited for longer aerobic ones. Now, climbers are next, and on the surface, climbers seem like they would be very similar to ellipticals, given that they are also low impact and utilize your arms and legs in a similar, though more upright pattern. But there are some big differences. For one, climbers tend to be a lot more expensive, typically between $2,000 to $4,000, and also take up less room, usually being around 2 to 3 feet long and wide, so more of a square shape. Now, climbers also don't really require much skill, so they can be started by anyone right away, and they are also full body, but they tend to be a lot more taxing than the elliptical is, and get difficult much more quickly, which makes them better suited for higher intensity, shorter sessions versus the longer aerobic ones. And in terms of the movement itself, the climber tends to be a bit more functional, driving your legs up and down rather than in the exaggerated horizontal movement. So personally, I like it a lot more in terms of that, but it is definitely less comfortable to do for a longer period of time. So overall, climbers are something I would suggest for somebody who likes shorter, more high intensity workouts, and for people like athletes who want a really functional crossover that can help them in activities outside of just working out. They are space efficient, which is also a plus, though as I mentioned, they do tend to come with a pretty hefty price tag. Next, we have something a bit more simple, but effective nonetheless, the classic heavy punching bag. Now, a bag is nice in that the amount of room it takes tends to be very little, maybe 3 to 4 square feet, though you will need room to move around and use it, of course, and the price tends to be fairly low as well. A bag by itself tends to cost just a few $100s, or even if you go buy a bag and gloves and punching trackers, it still tends to run under $700, so a very good value in my opinion. Now, boxing is a skill, of course, but that is part of the point, so you can get a cardio benefit while also taking classes to learn how to punch and some of the other basics around boxing. It too is better suited for more high intensity sessions over longer ones, and to be honest, the benefits are a bit different than the regular cardio equipment because the movement just isn't as cyclical, meaning that you're going to give up a little bit of that aerobic benefit in exchange for more strength and power development. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing either. If you only have time to do one thing and you want to get a better mix of strength and conditioning, then boxing tends to do really well compared to other modalities. So overall, I would suggest boxing for somebody who wants to get that hybrid benefit of both strength and conditioning all in one session and likes the idea of learning boxing as a valuable and functional skill. It's also very low priced and space efficient, so I'm a big fan, but that said, it may be less valuable than some of the other options for somebody who wants to focus more on just their aerobic conditioning alone. And finally, we have VR headsets like the MetaQuest 2 or the upcoming MetaQuest 3, which runs from around $300 to $500. And no, I'm not including other headsets that are a lot more expensive because most other headsets, including Apple's, are not really designed well for fitness use. Now, obviously, this takes up no floor space besides the area that you'll be standing in, and of course can be used by all sorts of people with very little initial skill required. There are a variety of fitness games available, mostly utilizing hand movements like Beat Saber and Supernatural, and while these can be fun, my biggest issue with these is that they focus mostly on upper body, which is just not very well suited for long aerobic work, and of course sweating in one of these is not really the best experience. It can be, however, a great entry point for beginners in fitness who just need something fun and excited to get themselves motivated. So I would suggest these, usually only for those who are completely new to fitness and have trouble being motivated but really enjoy playing games and are excited about the idea of working out in virtual reality. And believe it or not, I have spent a significant amount of time testing out fitness in VR, so I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on what it can offer. And if you want to see a video of me taking on a marathon level event in virtual reality and the pain and the suffering that took, make sure to watch this video here. As always, this is Colin Jenkins with Connect the Watts. Appreciate you being here, and I'll see you next time.